April 25th, 2024, and I will be calling to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Library Board of Trustees. If I could everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's delightful to see public in the room, and so we don't often get public. This will be the first period of public comment. If anyone would like to come forward, please come up to the table. You can turn on your microphone by clicking the flashing red microphone button. And public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person. Nice to see you.
Microphone on? Okay. I was asked by CL earlier today.
If you could please just start by stating your name for the record.
My name is Joe Salzman. I was asked by CL earlier today to provide feedback on anything she could have done differently in managing the library staff, and me specifically, as I have recently taken a new position. I didn't answer the question at the time because I feared the reaction would be non-constructive, combative, and argumentative. So I am giving that feedback now. As is the board is probably aware, I have accepted another position elsewhere. In lieu of a formal exit interview, I would like to comment to the board on the reasons behind my decision. CL's adversary.
If you could just speak a little bit more into the microphone, or speak
sorry.
up a little bit. Thank you.
CL's adversarial behavior towards staff and patrons and administrative dysfunction have been damaging the library's ability to serve the community for much of her tenure. This chaotic and hostile environment led me to seek work elsewhere, and I felt I could no longer be of effective service to the community under these conditions that are harmful to staff, patrons, and the community in general. So I would like the board to be aware that that is what fueled my decision, and that has been a major source of tension within the library over the last year.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else in the gallery who would like to make public comment at this point? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the roll call of members.
Tara Price Gritzmacher.
Jessica Rowe.
Ashley McGarity.
Kelly Kelly.
Joe Petteruti.
CL Quillen.
And CL, can we have verification of the posting of the agenda?
Yes, the agenda was posted on April 19th in all of the various locales where it gets posted each month.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item 6, consideration and possible action, approval of the agenda as submitted or revised. You have the agenda in your packet. Are there any revisions that are necessary or requested? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as submitted. All in favor, please indicate with an aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing that none, the motion passes, and we'll move on to agenda item 7, consideration and possible action, approval of minutes of the meeting on March 28th, 2024. I will just make a note, since we have a new member of our Board of Trustees, that you will need to abstain as you weren't present at the meeting. And Tara. Are there any edits to the minutes in the packet? Thank you, Joe, for filling in on those, by the way. Hearing no revisions, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Tara. And do I have a second? That's fine.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. All in favor, please indicate with an aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, please note the 2 abstentions. And we'll move on to Library Board of Trustees report. I'll kick us off. First, I'd like to formally welcome our new Library Board of Trustees member, Jessica Rowe. So pleased to have you on board. Just as far as some logistics, we try not to have more than 2 microphones on a time because it makes the feedback a little strange. Oh, hooray, we can have 4. So we'll just make sure that one of us has our mic turned off. So in the last month, I am very excited to report I got back to reading. I've checked out like 8 books from the library in the last month, which has been particularly enjoyable for me. I attended briefly the joint fundraising event at the Churchill Arts Council with the museum and with the Churchill Library Association. I thought it was a lot of fun. So I appreciate all the work that went into that and look forward to hearing more about some of the outcomes. I also would like to note that I attended the staff meeting at the library where our director CL was going to be talking with staff about the recent announcement of budget cuts and how that could potentially impact library services and what that might look like. And I walked away from that meeting feeling positive. I thought there was a lot of good idea generation about ways to maximize partnerships, to continue offering a vibrant programming calendar while at the same time limiting the necessity of staff being the ones facilitating those programs. And so I appreciate being able to connect in that way. And that's it for me. Are there any other library director reports?
I also. No, go ahead. I too attended the Roaring Twenties event. CL and I worked together with the museum director and folks on putting the whole thing together. And it was a fun event. Food was amazing. I have a question for you about attending the staff meeting.
Yeah.
Was that by invite, or was that just a spur of the moment you decided to attend?
No, CL and I had met the day before to talk about some of the potential strategies for dealing with the budget cuts. And she had indicated that she was going to be talking with the staff the next day at the meeting. I indicated that I was interested in attending. She had some concerns about that, about the staff being candid. Ultimately, I decided to go ahead and attend the meeting, which I let her know about, and also Chris Spross, our HR manager, just to make sure that that was within the purview of the role of the Library Board of Trustees to be able to do that, which was confirmed. And my intention in going was really to not burden the staff with scheduling an additional meeting just to meet with me and for me to hear from them about their ideas.
And was it just you that attended, or was
No, Ashley actually also came.
I can't say that I approve of that. I can't say that I approve of that because it does feel to me like it would be a burden on the staff too, that they would be less able to be free with their comments to their manager. So, but that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, actually, I do want to share that the feedback that I received from staff was overwhelmingly positive. And before the meeting ended, our children's librarian voiced that she had never worked at a library before where she as staff felt so connected and supported in her role at the library by a trustee member.
Interesting that she would have gotten that feeling from just one meeting. So, okay. Do realize that people generally will say that things are positive or, behave positively, even though they might not feel that way. They might not have felt open enough because they really, I see them quite often. I'm in and out of there quite often. Mm-hmm. I know you are too, so they know us a little bit personally, but I don't know. That's it.
Yeah, in that space, I really just wanted to hear if there were ideas that were coming out in order to see if there was consensus. And so, it gave them an opportunity to ask questions of me as the board chair and to get some other perspectives. And, like I said, I think that the strategies that were brought up and the ideas that came up were very productive and helpful.
So at some point, would you provide a report to the board as to the strategies and ideas that you did come up with? Or will it come up, to be part of discussion today?
Well, it's not agendized, so I can't present and, pull it up right now, but I would be happy to include the report the notes that we took afterwards and share this with the board at our next meeting.
That would be fabulous. Thank you.
Are there any other library board of trustees reports?
As Kelly said, I also attended the staff meeting, and I was really inspired by the proactivity of the staff. The staff really want to serve the community, and they really want to connect with each other, and they want to connect with the board. And I just want to say that they're working really hard without a whole lot of extra resources provided by whoever's providing resources. And I just think that they really deserve a good pat on the back, and all of the love ever. So I just wanted to share that.
We definitely second that for sure. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Sorry to keep on the same subject, but I'm just wondering how come certain members were invited to this meeting and certain board members weren't?
Yeah, so I signaled my intention to go, and Ashley and I had a conversation about it just offhand, and she indicated she was interested in going. Beyond that because we're limited by open meeting law, constrained by open meeting law, we couldn't have any additional board members present because that would constitute a quorum. That being said, I think that it is the purview of the Board of Trustees to go to any meeting that is affiliated with the library, and that if you are interested in doing so, then I would say that's absolutely within your purview, anyone on this board, and we just need to make sure that we limit attendance to 2 or less members of the Library Board of Trustees. And also, just as a reminder about open meeting law in cases like the fundraiser where there might be more members of this body present in one space, that all conversation about library matters must be, cannot come up in conversation. So that is the limitation, but also if you're interested in attending future meetings, I would just say absolutely, you're welcome to do so. Is there any other Library Board of Trustees reports?
No, I did want to ask, though, if you wanted to move up the library director's annual evaluation. I don't know if Mr. Barbie is here to speak on behalf.
Strauss.
Is he coming? Oh, that's him right there. Sorry. The guy with the gavel, that's right. I'm sorry. I was just wanted to ask, rather than tie him up for the rest of the meeting, because I know we've done that for Joff in the past, where we've moved up an agenda item.
Jeff, since we've approved the agenda already, do we have the flexibility to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the agenda can be taken in any order, right? It can be taken out of order, those kind of things. I think it has been approved, so probably the best practice would be to move forward. I don't think there would be a prohibition against it, but best practice would probably be to just follow the current schedule.
Sorry, Chris.
All right. In that case, we'll move on to item 9, Library Director's Report. CL?
Sorry, having a problem with the microphone today. Your packet contains the statistics for March. They are a little down from last year. Some of the programming statistics it's more about how they're being presented. Not that they were down, because we were not breaking them out by age group in past years. But I've broken them down that way because it's more consistent with the annual state reports. So that's what you see with that. We are still having a problem with the gate. Joe, our IT librarian, had put in a ticket with Envisionware, and they will be scheduling an appointment, most likely to come out to see if they can figure out what's wrong with it. They do think that there might be something electrical with it, as it's seems like we have problems with that or the AMH. A lot of times when we have a power outage, and we've had a few of those, including a significant one, not too long before, or right around the time that this started. So,
Just a quick question on that. So Envisionware is going to come out and try to troubleshoot it?
yes.
So that's a change from last month, right? We thought that they
Well,
weren't going to support it any longer?
I wasn't sure when the dates were, and after speaking with the Envisionware reps at the Library Association conference in Ohio, he did get back to me after the conference to let me know that we will be out of service next January. So,
Oh, fantastic. That is
Yes.
fantastic news.
yes.
No, that's a big expense to have to replace that. So servicing the library gate, that's great news. Thank you for chasing
Yeah.
that down.
Yeah. We also had an issue with the coin machine, which I understand just this past week and a half. And after clearing a jam, we still are having issues with it. The plunger appears to not be working. So Joe has also had put in a ticket for that and had spoken to Envisionware a little bit about it. It sounds like it may need to be replaced, which is not good news. So I'm waiting for a price quote on that, because currently the staff are having to, every time that somebody prints from the public computers, the staff have to walk over to the computer, enter in a code, and override so that the print job can be released. And unfortunately, until we get some resolution on that, that is the way that it is.
You said the coin machine
The coin machine for the print release station,
is, okay. And that's like, is that by the printer?
it is.
Okay.
You have to pay for the copies.
Yeah, I've just never printed anything like
Okay.
from one of the public computers, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. The library, I got a little off track there with talking about the gate counts and the fact that we don't have the number, and kind of moved into the gate, so I apologize for that, taking that out of order. Our numbers for our physical circulation are up over last month, but they're down from last March. Most of our Canopy was up. Sora was about the same. Hoopla was up. Mango, we didn't have last year. Our overdrive statistics were up. So we are up over last month, but still down from this time last year. We continue to have a steady number of volunteers in the library, and actually that's gone up since last year, although the number of hours that they do has gone down a little bit. However, there's so many things that we couldn't do without our volunteers, and we really appreciate them. Does anybody have any questions about any of the statistics?
Nope, sounds good.
Okay. The county had asked that we try to cut our library budget, our operations budget, by 10% for this year. That is a little challenging given where we are in the fiscal year, but we're doing what we can. Also, we had a number of things, mostly our utilities, our photocopier, our some of the computer things with CCCOM. Now that they're providing the firewall and we're paying for that monthly, all of those costs have gone up. So it does make it difficult to balance out some of those other things. books have been canceled. I'd like to ask, I didn't have a chance to, I didn't have the full picture, so did not agendize a request from the trust to help us with some of the costs of books for this year so that we can continue to be where we want to be and make sure that we have at least, the best sellers and the things that people are requesting for the remainder of the year. We do have a meeting coming up in 3 weeks, so I expect to see that on that request. The adult services librarian position was frozen.
Excuse me, CL, before you move on.
Sure.
So would you like to add an agenda item for next month for a withdrawal from the Morgan Trust to help fund new book purchases?
Yeah, so that was going to actually be my, I know you just mentioned you have a meeting in 3 weeks, but that.
We have a meeting. The library board has a meeting in 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So that'll be, and that connects to my question, which was that when you needed to cut that money from the operations, you prioritized collection development because there's still the trust that can supplement those line items, and then that'll cause a lesser impact on
Yes.
on programs and other services.
Well, and also, we just have seen such a huge increase in the utilities, and we
Yeah.
don't have any choice but to keep the lights on.
Yeah, you can't cut the utilities.
No. So, unfortunately, that does, between that and the payment to the Nevada Library Co-op, that is a significant expense each year. We couldn't do the things that we do without that expense to the co-op, but it is a large expense, and our budget there is not very large. I did send out, and I apologize that it was last minute, and we can talk about it more. As I said in my email, I will agendize further discussion of the budget, but there was a request to cut our budget an additional 15%. I had misunderstood that a little bit because we had originally, last month we talked about our budget had been approved for the most part, minus $1,100 that we had requested. Then on March 28th, we received a new budget which had a cut to it, and I thought that encompassed the 15% that needed to be cut from operations. That was an 11.7% cut, and we do now also have an additional 15% cut. But again, it's not agendized, so this is really more informational so that you guys can take a look at it. I made, some changes, and you have that document so that I could send it on to the comptroller's office.
Perfect. If we could just make note to make sure to get that Morgan Trust ask.
Yes.
Thank you.
The library gate, as I mentioned, is still not working. It is under contract until January of next year. We are now also looking at the coin machine as another cost that we'll have to cover. When I spoke to our Envisionware rep in January, he had said that he had thought, he didn't give me a specific quote, and also was not aware of exactly when our service contract ended, but he had said he thought it would be around $7,000 or $8,000. When I spoke to him in Ohio, he said that no, it's going to be more like $10,000, so that is a significant increase if we want to continue with the gate. As I mentioned at a previous meeting, there are other options. The gate, does let us know if items are being removed from the library without having been checked out. I think a lot of times that's, maybe error from the self-checkout, and I think that most of those, the overwhelming majority of those things do come back to us. I don't think that we have a significant theft situation. So another option and with that is to just get a people counter so that we have a more accurate number for the state. That number can be an estimate, and obviously with 3 months this year where we don't have 3 going on no, it'll be 3 months, hopefully. By the time that they get that fixed, we will have to give them an estimated number as opposed to a more exact number. Our rep did say that we can continue using the gate. He's seen them last much past their service point, but they would not be able to provide any support. And given the frequency of the power outages, that, would be a concern. The adult services librarian position has been frozen. Our IT librarian has resigned effective Monday. Since I wrote up this agenda, our library assistant, who works 25 hours a week, has also resigned due to some personal reasons. She's been fabulous in terms of offering to switch her hours and help to cover in any way that she can between now and her last day, which is going to be May the 10th. As Joe and Kelly both mentioned, we did have the Roaring Twenties event at the Art Center. It was sponsored by the CLA and the museum. I think it was a really great event. People seemed to have a really fabulous time. As Joe mentioned, the food was really good. We did well with our basket raffles, which was a good thing. And it just seemed like all around everybody had a good time and was a good program. The Nevada Libraries Directors Summit is coming up on May the 29th to the 31st. I was informed by the state library that they consider it mandatory training for new directors, but I have let them know that due to staffing, unless something changes with our hours, that there's just no way that I will be able to attend that because it is 3 days and it encompasses a Wednesday, which is one of our longer days, and with only 3 full-time staff, including myself, and as of this moment, 1 page, I'm not sure how we're going to cover that day anyway, much less without a body in the building. I did attend the Public Library Association conference in Columbus, Ohio. I thought it was a great conference. There were a number of really interesting new products being shown. In the event that there's ever another developed part of the county where we maybe can't provide library service but can't provide another branch but want to provide some services, there's a number of different things that they're offering. Some prefab little buildings that are very small that have like a pickup collection and offer Wi-Fi that people can access. I had a chance to catch up with, some of the vendors that we are working with. Most of them that are paid through the state library. Beanstack was there. They do our summer reading and 1,000 Books Before Kids. So I had a chance to speak with them. I had a chance to speak with some of our Baker and Taylor representatives. I had a chance to talk to the people with Gale who do some of our databases and EBSCO. So that was, really valuable. Also, just seeing some of the other things that are out there. We, as I've mentioned before, have received the grant for the senior memory kits, and there were a lot of really cool new products out for seniors who are starting to develop dementia and having other abilities to keep their minds active and, to help them with some of that adjustment and to help with their caretakers. Not as many publishers, and, the vendors did seem to be smaller than what I remember, but there were really some good ones. I attended a number of really excellent programs. Unfortunately, both of the main keynotes had to be canceled at the last minute, but they brought in some Shola Rich, may not have the name quite right, Shola Richards, I believe it is, who wrote the book Making Work Work, was there and spoke. He was very inspiring. There was a program on diversity, equity, and inclusion with Readers Advisory, which was really interesting. I attended a program that was a panel of a couple of different libraries that talked about how things like security, collection development, hours were handled, and there was a lot of engagement from the audience. They had kind of gamified it so people could log in on their phones, and they were doing live polls about how different things were handled. So that was really useful. Another program that I attended also talked a lot about some of the same things, and they also sort of gamified it, but in a different way. They actually had people get up and talk about, I'm having this problem in my library, and people would talk about, well, how did you handle it? What were the positives that could come out of it, and what were, some of the things that were more challenging to overcome. And so there were some really great ideas for, some flexible scheduling and other ways to handle some of those issues. A lot of programs about book banning, a couple of really great author programs. I had the opportunity to catch up with colleagues that I've worked with on projects across the country through, with various things over the years, and some of that conversation was really valuable as well. I do want to mention it's not on here. We are doing page interviews tomorrow. We have 2 pages that we'll be interviewing, and I'm really hopeful that we'll have somebody who works out for the library. I think we've got some good candidates, and I feel good about that. And I think that's all I've got from my report.
Thanks for adding in that little bit about the pages. I was going to ask about that. So there's 1 page position that's open right now?
There is 1 page position open right now.
Okay, and that position hasn't been impacted by a hiring freeze, the hiring freeze?
No, I spoke with HR, and because it's a non-benefited position, we are able to hire that position. So we're moving ahead with those interviews.
Perfect, thank you. Are there any questions for CL? CL, you were done? That was it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Are there any questions for CL about our library director's report?
Will we have an opportunity for questions about the revised budget, or will that be a separate agenda item for next month?
So I think you can ask questions. We just can't, we're not taking action on anything.
Yeah.
I will note with the budget, just to keep in mind that the operations budget overall has to be cut, but there's the flexibility to move things between line items throughout the fiscal year, and also, for the remaining of this fiscal year. And so ultimately, it just had to get cut. And the specifics of where, just the personnel obviously is what it is, and then the operations, things can be moved between line items.
Right. As I mentioned, it is still tentative. There is the possibility that the Board of County Commissioners will make additional changes or require that we make additional changes to it. I tried to base some of the things. I actually increased some of the lines for utilities because unfortunately they just keep going up. But it is a significant reduction over even this year. It's approximately $25,000 less than what we had this year before the other cut that they're asking us to make to the best of our ability. So it is challenging. We are required by the state to spend 10% of our total budget on materials. They have indicated, though, that in the event that we're not able to reach that number, that we can apply for a waiver and explain what our circumstances are, and that will be factored in so that we don't lose our eligibility for LSTA grants and other things like that.
Do they just look at the operations section of our budget or the total budget?
No, they look at the total budget. It is supposed to be.
So it includes all the personnel costs
Yes.
as well? Do you know if all employees across the county are losing their 3% COLA for next year?
I believe that's the case, yes,
Yeah.
from the communications I've gotten from Jim Barbie and the HR office, yes.
Okay, that's really all I was wondering. Thank you.
Just a quick question about the LSTA and the state requirements and 10%. That is 10% of actual expenditures, right? Like
Yes.
at the end, so
Yes.
looking retrospectively.
Right,
So there is a little bit of a buffer there because
Yes.
there is savings in the personnel section of that budget.
right.
So, okay, that's nice to have a little bit of flexibility there.
Yes, yes. And like I said, they in my conversation with them both about the Directors Summit and about the budget cuts, they were very understanding and said that they would do whatever they could to work with us, and, that they have in the past granted waivers, when a library was not able to meet, those numbers for one reason or another. They did grant us a waiver for something else this year, so I would imagine that, they've been very helpful. They offered a number of solutions. Going back to the Directors Summit, they did say that they would pay for substitutes. I just don't know, not having a substitute list, how we would make that work, because we'd have to get them on the payroll and do all of those things, so.
Just, it would be my concern because, the bottom line for us right now is 794,000, so it'd be 79,000 that we have to invest in collection development, right?
We do.
And the Morgan Trust only has about 60 in it, so we could go through that in this one pass.
Right. Well, I mean,
And
there
still
is.
be short.
There is money budgeted from the collection. It's not like I've eliminated that. The other thing that we have to factor in, this year we received a little over $7,000 from the state library for a collection development grant, and that money counts too. So, so they are giving us back some of the money to help fund and help us meet that.
Good. All right, any other questions for Library Director? In that case, we will move on to setting the date and time of the next regularly scheduled Library Board of Trustees meeting. That meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 16th at 3:00 p.m. at the Churchill County Administration Building here at 155 North Taylor Street in the Commission Chambers. All right, and seeing no old business, we'll move on to new business item number 1, consideration and possible action to approve the monthly budget report. That report is in your packet. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. So in looking at, oh.
I think, I'm just noticing, I think they got out of order. That's actually the budget worksheet for next year.
It's passed.
If you advance a few more pages, you'll get to it should say yes. There you go.
So when I go to the page 6 of 9, and we're looking at, that report total, and it reflects a 36% remaining of the budget. What is the cut that they've asked you for this final quarter?
Well, they have asked for a 10% cut, but it does have to come from the services and supplies line, which, if you look at that, we're down to 9.92%. So they are aware that, they're asking us to try as hard as we can to make that 10% goal. But they are aware that, budgets have been spent throughout the year. There are certain things that, we pay once, like the co-op fees that we pay once throughout the year. So, some of those things impact it. And like I said, if you look at, we are at a minus 85% on our utilities and gas. We are at sorry, I'm trying to find the line for the electric, sewer, and water. That I know is also in the, it's not quite in the, no, we still have money left, but we do still have, our April, May, and June bills to pay from that, and that is a hefty monthly amount. That's on page 5, above the, actually right above the utilities and gas. And so I'm estimating that we are going to be, significantly overspent in that area too. So.
Yeah, I think that we all have experienced the rising cost of utilities, electric and gas. I don't think anybody is exempt from that at this point. Are there any other questions about the library budget report?
Well, any chance that we could divert the 507 Main Street utilities to the county?
That's been asked in the past, and we are, part of 507 is the library annex, which we use, so that is a lot of those expenses, and part of the 507 expenses are also for the lot between us and the annex.
Any other questions about the library budget report? All right, hearing none, I will accept a motion to approve the report as submitted, since we can't revise it to what our hopes would be, right?
I'll make the motion to approve the budget report as submitted.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the library budget report as submitted. All in favor, please indicate with an aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes, and we'll move on to consideration and possible action to approve the library gift fund.
You do not have that in your packet because I received it after I sent the packet out to you, and when I was working on the budget, once I got it, I figured it could wait since it was just the interest. I mean, nothing has been spent from that until the next month, and I just didn't think about it when I was working on the budget last night from home to include that as part of the addendum. So
All right.
I will have that for the May
Perfect.
for us to approve.
All right, so in that case, I'll accept a motion to table that.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion to table the approval of the library gift fund report for, that'd be for the month of March until our May meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second to table item 2, consideration and possible action to approve the library gift fund until our May meeting. All in favor, please indicate with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes, and we'll move on to new business item 3, consideration and possible action to approve the library director's annual evaluation report. Mr. Spross, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Chris Bross, Assistant County Manager, HR Director for Churchill County. So this item is the consideration of possible action regarding the library director's annual evaluation. As you are all aware, anytime there's a discussion on professional competence of a chief executive or administrative officer, it has to be an open session, and that's why we're here today. So just a little background. Back on your last meeting on March 28th, which I couldn't attend, I apologize, I had a previous commitment. Mr. Weed handed out the blank evaluation forms for the board to complete. Subsequently, per request, I emailed those out to everyone individually, so it was a little easier to fill out on the computer. And that was done on April 2nd. I received those completed evaluations back on the 9th of April. And once I received those, I put together 2 composite reports. The first report took all of the comments that were made in the individual evaluations, as well as the grades that were outlined in the individual evaluations, and put those into one report, which was then distributed to the director for review. I will state that the reports, both reports, were based on the original receipt of the evaluations. I was asked by one board member if they could change their evaluation. I didn't find that that was prudent at the time, and basically suggested if there was any accolades or any issues that needed to be, that weren't discussed, that they should be discussed at the meeting here today. So all the grades and all the comments were based on the original original evaluations that were sent to me. The second report that I put together is a report for the board. The report for the board is a little different than the report that was given to Director Quillen. The board's report only includes the grades and what I did with those, and you have seen it before. I assigned a point value to each one of the grades, with good being a 5, excellent being a 5, good being a 4, all the way down to unsatisfactory being a 1. And then I took those and averaged it out among the 4 evaluations that I received. And those are the grades that are in the report that the board has. There are no comments. All comments and grades in both of those reports were kept confidential, so that nobody would feel that they couldn't share the comments that they wanted to make. When I completed those reports, I met with Director Quillen on the 16th of April and distributed the report to her. And then the report for the board was included in the packet, which you have with you. And I can certainly go through each one of the individual criteria if you would like me to, but it is there in your packet. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on how the evaluation reports were put together or anything like that.
All right, are there any Board of Trustees comments or questions for our HR Director, Mr. Spross?
Chris, you mentioned that you met with CL to deliver the results to her on the 16th, April 16th.
That's correct. I went to the library and met with CL on the 16th, yes.
And did you have an opportunity to discuss all the comments that were submitted, or was it just a here you go? And
well, it kind of was a here you go. There's not much that I can add to the comments that are made by the Board of Trustees. I can't explain anything, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. We did talk about a couple of other things that were not relevant to the evaluation, but with the evaluation, I don't want to impart or impose any comments that may be taken out of context with what is in those comments.
thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Spross?
Actually, one more follow-up. You mentioned that there was one board member that asked you to change their review, and you suggested that they discuss it here today. Did I understand that correctly?
No, what I suggested was I didn't feel it was prudent to redact or supply an amended evaluation. What I said was, this is going to be discussed in an open session. If there are any accolades or any comments that you wanted to make as part of that amendment, it could be discussed here as opposed to revising the original evaluation.
Thank you.
All right, is there any discussion that any Board of Trustee member wants to have about this evaluation?
I did think that it was very positive that on both relationship with customers, responsiveness to direction from the library board, and, excuse me, innovation initiative, that she scored exceptionally well on those, 4 point and above. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think those are important.
Thank you. So I'll take a moment at this juncture to identify that I have some pretty significant concerns about this review and about performance issues. And leading up to this evaluation, I both reached out and was approached by a variety of members of our library community to ask questions about culture, about communication, about satisfaction with patrons, with staff. I heard from members of other departments at the county. I heard from collaborative partners who sought me out to give me input about their working relationships with our library director. And those perspectives, along with my own perspective, I brought into this review process. And so I just want to name that I have some pretty significant concerns. And I personally, at this juncture, do not feel comfortable moving myself with an approval of this evaluation.
If you have concerns, why weren't they brought forward? I mean, she's been here a year now. Why haven't they been brought forward before this? I mean, you know, it's kind of like last minute, here's the review, and oh, by the way, I really don't like you anymore. I mean, it just sounds,
Oh, to be fair, this has nothing to do
Inappropriate.
with liking or disliking.
liking or disliking her performance. Let me be clear.
Yes. So, and you know, as a mea culpa, I will say that I tried to leave space and not. I am of the perspective that, and maybe other board members share this perspective, maybe they do not. I don't particularly have an interest in micromanaging, especially at the beginning of a tenure of a new director. And so from where I stood, I wanted to make sure that there was the space for our new director to set her course without a whole lot of involvement or meddling, if you will. That being said, when I was approached by staff, by other county departments, employees of the county and other departments, and by organizational partners, I grew concerned. And so that gave me a wider lens than just what I had experienced individually.
Did you think that it would have been appropriate at that time to bring them comments to CL's attention to see if maybe it was something that she would have had an opportunity to correct along the way?
Over the last year, CL and I have been meeting at least on a monthly basis to talk about issues, to strategize solutions, and consistently there have been the identification of problems. We suggest solutions, I suggest solutions. So that dialogue had been happening consistently throughout the whole year.
But it takes me by surprise because it has never been brought up until right now. And I feel like I've been blindsided. I mean, if you've had issues with our director, then we should have had an opportunity to go into a closed session and discuss them before right now. Because like I said, I mean, I feel like she has nothing that she can do now. I mean, it's after the fact. And you know, I like to hit things head on, and so I would also assume that if someone had a problem with me on this board or in my other county capacities or you know, around the community, that they would take it to me first, and I'm not suggesting that you didn't, but what I am suggesting is that there was then an opportunity for us to do something to help her improve, instead of just going, well, she's not good at this, she's not good at that, this something else is happening. I mean, there's a lot of intervention that could have happened over the past year if you've been meeting with her over the past year. And I also think it would have been your responsibility to bring something forward to us if there were issues.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think that in our one-on-one meetings leading up to each board meeting, I held space in those spots to think that what was happening was an unloading, a venting, you know, a verbal processing of challenges. It was not until within a few days of our last meeting that I heard others' perspectives. And so at that juncture, there was nothing, the agenda had been posted, it wasn't something that I could do. So I'm interested in hearing from other members of the Library Board of Trustees, and in light of what you just said, I think that maybe the best course would be for us to set a special meeting to be able to have a more complete discussion about this. That could involve a closed session, though we can't take action in a closed session.
If I can interject there.
Yeah.
Because the
Jeff, I
director
was just gonna
answers
ask
to the
that.
board, there are circumstances where you know, consider the conduct of a person's employment that can be taken into closed session. This would not be one of them. Because she answers to the board, she is hired by the board, dismissed by the board, those kind of things that, those are not allowed to go into closed session. I mean, we could talk further about it, I could look further into it, but generally, with this specific type of position, that would not be allowed.
All right.
So my issue at this point is I just don't feel like I have enough information. So I don't know how to resolve that, but that's how I feel at this point in time.
Tara, do you mean you don't have enough information to approve the review?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to add that in being a library staff myself, not at the county library, but at the academic library at the community college, I have had an opportunity to kind of build some rapport with the staff just because of the nature of our work. And I think every single one of the staff has addressed to me and mentioned concerns over feeling disrespected and unvalued. And I just thought that would be really important for us to hear here, this board too.
I just can't help but to reiterate them, and it's disappointing to hear it at this point. I really wish that we had a better relationship amongst ourselves, that it could have been discussed here. And I'm just saddened by the fact that we weren't able to do that.
Well, and I think that, I know that I was trying to give the benefit of the doubt, and I know that CL is new and trying to get her feet wet also, and I wanted to give her an opportunity to get settled and figure out where she fits. And honestly, most of the conversations that I had before the evaluation were things that I could chalk up to CL getting her feet wet, and both the staff learning new leadership and that kind of stuff. It wasn't until after I submitted my evaluation, and I was the one that emailed Chris Ross. It wasn't until after that they were telling me all of these concerns that they have and these feelings that they have. And I think that it's a really big red flag that we have had so many staff resign so quickly because of how they feel about how they're treated.
Where do we go from here? I mean, it's obvious that we don't have enough staff right now. And, the board appears to be losing confidence in our director. I mean, are we going to get a new director, close the library? I mean, this is like opening another whole big discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And as those things aren't agendized on our agenda, we can't actually have a conversation about those things at this juncture.
So I would request that we add that to the May agenda, please.
Okay. Additionally, I would like to see us have a special meeting, ideally to table this conversation about the library director's annual evaluation. Incidentally, if we were to take action on approving or not the library director's annual evaluation at this juncture, we could only actually approve the report. There on the agenda is not included the step increase, and so we would have to do that separately regardless. So with that, we need to plan a special meeting at least 7 days out. I would recommend we look at 2 weeks and call a special meeting for which we address new business item 3, the library director's annual evaluation.
So that would bring us to Thursday, May 9th, if we stay with our Thursday dates. Is that open?
Is that a potential, this Thursday, May 9th? At 3:00 PM? Pam, do you happen to know if the facility is available?
It is available in the morning, and it might be available, wonder how long, do you remember how long the Central Nevada Health District Board meetings have been going? And I have no idea how much they'll have on their agenda, but even if they went to 3:30, they're meeting at 1:30, so it's available all morning and then later in the day.
Would folks be open to a 4 PM meeting on,
On the 9th, I would be. How about
On May
you?
9th?
How about you, ladies?
Okay, I'll book the room.
okay, in that case, I will accept a motion to table new business item 3, consideration and possible action to approve the library director's annual evaluation to a special meeting called on Thursday, May 9th at 4:00 PM, located here in the County Commission Chambers in the Churchill County Administration Building at 155 North Taylor Street. You don't have to say all of that.
I will so move.
All right, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please indicate with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Pam, if you could book that on the calendar. Thank you, Mr. Spross.
Thank you for your patience, too.
All right, and we will move on to new business item 4, consideration and possible action, review of the CLA Endowment Fund. Joe, I think I'm turning this over to you, right?
Okay.
Thank you for bringing this together. Thank you for pulling this together.
Oh, this was a simple one. It was just the front page of our Edward Jones account. And so if I can draw your attention, Pam, can you scroll to the bottom of that page for me for a second? Please, and thank you. Right to just the bottom of that Edward Jones page. That's where you'll be able to see the performance, the rates of return. So we've gotten 5.3% on our money this quarter, which will also happen to be year-to-date because it's as of the end of March. We did 19.8% return in the past 12 months. 3 years annualized, well, you guys remember we had a couple of bad years in there, so it was down a little bit, but overall, we're at 7.79% for the 5-year annualized return, which is pretty good. When we started with $30,000, in that little box to the left there, you can see with $30,000, we've made some additional deposits, and there's also been some account growth. And so now we're up to $158,770.20. Woo-hoo!
You know, Joe, I just want to take a moment and to thank you, because I remember you and I both sat on this board 5 years ago, and you were a fierce advocate for the Library Board of Trustees making the decision to move funds held in our account at the county over to the Edward Jones account that was just starting. Mm-hmm. And you know what? You should be really proud. You have been entirely right about this. And so I just want to thank you for fighting so hard for that. I know that it wasn't a unanimously popular idea, but I think that,
Thank you.
you know, 19.8% growth in the last 12 months is fantastic.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any questions about the CLA endowment report?
One thing that I wanted to also point out is we do have a second little account that sits behind this called the corporate account. And so donations that we get go directly into the endowment fund. Monies that we raise via fundraisers, some of those funds go into what we call this corporate account, and that's where the account management fees are paid from. So there's never any fees paid from the endowments.
That is also a fantastic protection, and I appreciate the Churchill Library Association for doing that, because then when people make their contributions for the purpose of supporting library activities, programs, collections, so on and so forth, their funds aren't also going to pay for maintenance on the account.
Thank you.
All right, hearing no other questions, I don't think that we need to take action on approving of your endowment account. So we can move on to new business item 5, review of the Library Board of Trustees bylaws. CL, was this something you wanted to review?
No, I had a request from a board member asking that it be included for
Oh,
discussion.
perfect.
That was me. I fess up. I was going back through my records and I realized that we didn't have a current, my copy that I had goes back to 2014. So I thought that it might be a nice opportunity. We've been reviewing bylaws with the CLA as well, and we're just in the process of adapting and updating those. So I thought this might be an opportunity just to get it in front of you guys so we can start looking at it. One thing that I did notice, I mean, obviously, we're all set by NRS as far as what we're entitled to do. But one thing that seems kind of odd is that, you know, we have a little section for the library director and what she's responsible for. But we don't really have anything in there that discusses our own responsibilities. I mean, it's in NRS, but we don't even have a little section or anything that says, per NRS, trustees are responsible for X. So I just thought that might be a nice thing. I don't know. Jeff, do you have any comments on this?
I don't know if I have any comments at the moment. I looked at what was included in the packet, and it is pretty sparse. I mean, if it's in the NRS, I don't think it has to be in the bylaws, right? I think it's a preference thing for the board on what you want to have in there. If there's already direction, then there's direction. But I mean, however you guys want to proceed with that is fine.
Okay.
I
So-
want to add, though, that the Nevada State Library's website does have a breakdown of, like, duties and responsibilities of library board people. So maybe we can look into that and see. I don't have it on me, but I know that it's there.
Be good, because I think it'd be nice to have all one, you know, we have a new board member. You and I have been around, you know, but it kind of would be nice to just have it laid out, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I thought that these bylaws being in the packet had entirely to do with the fact that we had a new board member, right? Because I think
too.
anytime we have a new member on the board, it can be helpful to share all those organizational documents as far as providing the specific bylaws. And, you know, maybe one thing that we can think about is building out maybe a packet for new Board of Trustees members that includes like links to resources and the like. So, thank you.
I know we do have a little training module, because we've had to take that in the past. Did that get to you yet?
The training that I've done has been specifically related to open meeting law and so on and so forth.
No, I had a Library Board of Trustees link that I had to follow, and it had a whole bunch of different segments. I can send that information and maybe
That'd be-
pass it to you, because maybe you didn't even realize we had that. Carol sent it to me. I mean, that was some years
Forever
ago.
ago. We're getting long on the tooth.
I know. So,
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing that out, and then it could be sent out. That way, there's not direct communication.
yeah, I'd be glad to.
Perfect. Are there any other questions or comments about the Library Board of Trustees bylaws? And Jessica will endeavor to get you all of the resources as soon as possible.
I appreciate that, and I appreciated being able to review these. Thank you.
All right. I don't see that there's any action that needs to be taken with regards to the review of the Library Board of Trustees bylaws, and we will move on to the review of library hours.
In speaking with the state library, they suggested that I take a look at the number of hours that we were open compared to the number of full-time staff that we have. And so they provided me with the information for the libraries that are closest in population size. There really is nobody who, you know, is super close. They are either 10,000 or so in terms of population size less than us. Pahrump is the closest, and they're still 15,000-ish more than us, and then Douglas and Carson are, you know, more than double. I do want to point out that, you know, in many cases, our visits to the library and our circulation, even without adjusting for size, are considerably more than many of the other libraries that sort of are our comparisons. have a significant number of volunteer hours compared to quite a few of the libraries. Our total circulation, and we are doing it with considerably less staff than most of the libraries. I did not have a chance to talk to the new director at Lyon County because I do know that they have 4 branches, and I'm not sure how those branches are staffed, but I did reach out to Humboldt County. They have 8 people staffing their main library, and they're very comparable in terms of the number of hours that they're open per week. At the moment, with only 3 full-time staff and a page, which I'm hoping will double after tomorrow, very soon, I don't know how we can maintain 55 hours open a week while still allowing staff to be able to take their vacation time and any other paid time off. The week of May 13th, there is a staff member on vacation that whole week, and that will be when both of the 2 staff who are leaving will have left. So, we are very short and to be open with 2 people in the building at all times and open for 10 hours on Tuesday and Wednesday, and all of the hours that we're open, I'm not quite sure how we're going to manage that, especially if there were any staff illness or other situations that arose. Jay has class visits scheduled. Mostly they're coming in, but that does obviously take away from who can be at the desk, and there are other things that come up. So I don't know what the board's feeling is in terms of reducing hours temporarily until we're able to hire some additional staff. I just don't know how we can stay open. The 2 possibilities, depending on how many hours we want to be open each day, would be either to do Monday through Fridays. I don't think that that's a great solution, since anybody who can only get to the library on a Saturday would not then be able to visit the library. Mondays have been one of our slowest days, so it may be more advantageous to open Tuesday through Saturday. If we were to do an 8 or 9 hour day each day, we could maintain our evening hours, because I know that there are, or some of our evening hours, because I do know that there are people who are only able to get to the library in the evenings. And if we maintain the evening hours but cut the mornings those days, that might be able to be accomplished. I do know that I've spoken with both of the staff about it. One of them is open to working Tuesday through Saturday. One of them has told me that if she has to work every Saturday, she will quit. So I have spoken to HR about the possibility of some flexible scheduling, so that, because we currently only have a full-time staff member and a page on, so that may be a way to alleviate so that staff don't have to work every Saturday unless that's their choice. But again, with the number of staff hours that we currently have, I don't know how we can maintain 55 hours a week.
If we had to cut library hours, I'm just trying to think ahead with regards to staff retaining their full-time status. How many hours do they have to work? Is 32 and below considered
40.
part? It still has to be 40? It's not like 33 and?
No. That's why I would suggest that we, either do a Monday through Friday or Tuesday through Saturday.
Yeah.
I would be leaning more towards the Tuesday through Saturday, just I mean, there may be people out there who can only get to the library on Mondays, and I don't know how we would, accommodate them, but I think that there's more people who could only get to the library on a Saturday than there would be on a Monday.
As we have this conversation, CL, just because of the new resignation of your part-time person and from some of the information that you gave earlier, because that is a part-time position, is it also not benefited and possible that you would be able to hire that part-time position as well?
That position is benefited at 25 hours a week. I have written this week justifications for one, not having to abide by the 90-day typical hiring delay, and also that those positions be filled, and outlined quite a number of possible alternatives. But at this level of staffing, even if we take every alternative that I've listed, I still don't see how we can maintain services.
And it's hard because the math just doesn't, I can't make the math work. I mean, we're covering 55 hours with 6.3 people, but we're being asked to reduce it, or have been reduced down to 3.3. Some of the positions we don't know if we'll get back. So that's 47, almost 48% reduction in force. If you apply that reduction to the total hours, that would mean that we should only be open 28.8 hours. That's not very much.
No, and
I
I'm
mean,
not
that's
suggesting
like-
that we,
right. No, I know,
that we
but-
drop those hours down. I mean, some of the things that are done in off-desk time, for instance, the cataloging, some of that, obviously there would be a cost, but Baker and Taylor can do our spine labels, certain things, other things that are done with processing the books. We do utilize volunteers quite a bit, so we would continue to do that. They would still have to be linked in the computer, and that does take time, but it doesn't take a significant amount of time. I would say probably spine labeling is one of the larger, because somebody's got to decide where it goes, and I do feel that Baker and Taylor, who is our main vendor for books, would, given that they work with with libraries all over the country, would be able to make those distinctions, and we can provide them with very specific directions on how many numbers we go with this spine label, how many letters of the alphabet we go with the author's name, and those things. We've been experimenting with that with our fiction, because that is very clear cut. There may be some things, particularly with biographies, where we might want to make some adjustments after we receive the books. For instance, if there was somebody that was well-known locally, we might put them in biography, where a library in Mississippi who also purchased the book, if it was about a musician, might put it in the music category, or things of that nature. Some additional things that we could do would be to purchase lockers, which a number of libraries utilize both in COVID and have found that they are very popular going forward, where people can pick up books after hours. Again, there would be a cost to purchase and install those.
So just to add a little bit of context, because I've seen the waiver justification, and just in case for our new folks, the county, and Jeff, you might be able to speak more specifically to what the county policy is, but a number of years ago, the county commissioners, I believe, voted and passed a thing, or there was a procedure adopted where when a position is vacated, there is a 90-day gap. And so when our previous library director had given her notice, I was part of completing this form and going and taking it to Joff and County Manager Barbie to make the case that the position should not be gapped, and to advocate for a 1-week overlap in the case of the director with our children's librarian. I think we did a 1-week overlap. So you do this process, you fill out the paperwork, you submit it, and then typically there's a conversation that happens, and either they approve the waiver of that gapping, which enables you to then go through the process of hiring somebody to fill that position.
Right. And
Is there, did I get that right?
That sounds pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
HR.
So, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Yeah, no worries.
HR has indicated that, those justifications will be used with the Board of County Commissioners. They will be having separate meetings outside of typical board meetings to look at any departmental requests to fill open positions.
Now, previously, those meetings were limited to, I mean, like I said, I've sat in on one, so, the library director, HR director, county manager, to make that decision. I understand that our fourth librarian position has been frozen at the moment, but where are we at in the timeline with, have you submitted those waiver justifications
Those
for
waivers
both?
have been submitted for both. Chris is working to set appointments so that, the department would be able to then come in and meet with the board. I know the gap waiver that was done for the adult services position, I met with Joff while he was still here, Sherry from the comptroller's office. Jim couldn't make it. And there was a third person, but I am drawing a blank on who that was. It might have been Chris. Anyway, they made the recommendation about what to do with that position and whether or not we would have to go with the gap. That recommendation was taken to the Board of County Commissioners, and then they voted on it. They did initially, allow us to advertise and try start the hiring process for that position. Unfortunately, of the 4 candidates that we had scheduled to interview, only 2 of them were able to, were still unemployed at the time that, we did the interviews. The one that we offered the position to had several other job offers, and the 4th one we deemed not right for the position.
So I just bring that up because, first of all, I thought you did a great job with the waiver justification, and that was when I first saw this document, which I think is helpful as a communication tool to advocate for filling those positions. I do want to make sure to get it on the record that our library, without that 4th full-time librarian position, operated. So again, the 2 positions that the folks have resigned and are in their final days, provided those positions are approved to fill, that just takes us back to the staffing that we had prior to, 3 years ago, we got that 4th librarian position? Yeah. So that, and when that position was added, the library operating hours didn't increase.
Right.
So, so I just want to make sure that everyone on the Library Board of Trustees is aware of that. The main increases happened when we got that 4th librarian position. The main things that were impacted were the number of programs that were offered and off-site. So there was flexibility for, say, Joe, the IT librarian, to go to the senior center to do, technology one-on-ones. So that had been the benefit of adding that 4th librarian position, but the hours of operation didn't change. Before we get too much more in the weeds on this review of library hours, I do just want to note that based on the agenda, I don't think that we could take any action today, just because if we were to have a vote on changing library hours, that would be something that would need to be explicitly written into the agenda in order to give the public an opportunity to come and weigh in on that. So I appreciate the information, and I hope that you will keep us up to date on what happens with those 2 waiver justifications. And also, I think that as we approach the end of the timeline for the employees that we have at this moment, there need to be some continued conversations, perhaps with Chris over in HR about some approaches to deal with the situation, that the staffing challenges. But certainly, here's hoping that you get to fill those positions.
Absolutely. I'm just not sure where that leaves us in the meantime. Particularly the week of May 13th, when there will only be 2 full-time staff and a page. Maybe we will have a second page hired by then. Of course, if we do and they're able to start, they will need training. So I'm not certain how 95 hours of staffing is going to cover 110 hours.
Before we get further into the conversation, I have 2 more for my own education on the county system. So this is a situation that seems to have come on very quickly for you, and you have to make some adjustments very quickly as well. What mechanisms does the county have for emergency situations that affect staffing for whatever reason? And what mechanisms do they have for something like an emergency temporary hire? Because a lot of what we're discussing would be a much longer hiring process and needs to be vetted. But what you need is a stopgap measure. Your suggestion is a reduction of hours. Is there anything else that the county has done in similar situations where they have become suddenly very short? Do they pull from other county entities to lend weight? Do they offer, say, a security person if you're going to close your library? Do they offer somebody on a temporary basis? Do you have temps? Or do they allow you to hire somebody on an emergency contract for a limited number of months to cover your gap?
I don't have answers to any of that. I don't know if Jeff is able to speak to any of that.
I was making eyes at
I don't know if I can offer too much of an educated opinion on it regarding the county. I think HR and the county manager would have a little more. I mean, different departments contract with people to come in and provide certain services. We do it all the time in other departments. And so regarding, hey, do we do crossover between departments or job positions, things like that? I don't know if I'm prepared right now to answer that.
I appreciate that. I think that as we come to look at this again and maybe approach a motion, some of those other options might help us make this decision with more choices.
Yeah, I will speak with Chris over the next few days and see if he has any other options or suggestions. I don't want to close the library. I think that, our service is crucial to the community, and it's not a service that any other agency provides. So there is no other option if we're not there providing that service. I just don't know how to staff it.
My fear would also be that people could look at us as maybe not being as significant because we were able to just willy-nilly, oh, we just closed, or maybe we really don't need a library as much. I
Right.
wouldn't want to see us get that kind of reputation.
Or maybe we don't need a 4th full-time librarian as much, right?
Exactly.
Or maybe we're just checking the box and that's good enough. So I just have concerns about cutting hours because I think that it's easier to cut something than it is to get it back. And I think that, a cut to library hours, and I understand there's concerns with staffing. I thank you, Jessica, for suggesting a variety of other tactics that could be investigated, and I think those are worthwhile conversations to have with Chris and with, and just being really honest and realistic about it, right? With Chris, with County Manager Barbie, if appropriate, in order to, a special circumstance, a special situation needs to have a very proactive and perhaps special approach, right? But again, I'm concerned about cutting things,
I also, one more thought on that. if I'm reading the timelines right, she's going to run into her shortfall before we have another meeting. So having something that we can give in this kind of a situation, because we just found out about the resignation of the part-time employee today, that is going to affect her in the week prior to our next meeting. We need to have some sort of emergency temporary situation for that, because it will be unhealthy for that week. So we might need to lend a little bit if we can.
Is this something that could also be discussed? I mean, it would not give us much time, but is this also something that could be discussed at the special meeting on the 9th?
I mean, I think that that is something that can be added to the agenda. Are we limited in any regard about that?
No, we can put that on the agenda for the 2 week from now meeting, yeah.
Right. Are there any other comments, questions?
No, well, I guess I would just want to know, could one of us reach out to help CL with some of this research as far as getting short-term temporary help? Is that appropriate against the law?
I mean, I think, I don't think there's an issue with our reaching out to Chris Spross on behalf of the library about these potential solutions. Is there anything that you see wrong with that?
I'm sorry, I was writing something, I missed the question.
The question that Joe had was if there was, if it would be appropriate and an acceptable offer for a member of the library board to reach out to HR to identify concerns and potential solutions, including like emergency contract, temporary hiring, so on and so forth, rather than delegate the responsibility to do that research entirely onto CL.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. As always, the caution is to do it not in a quorum and to, be cautious about that. But individually, if someone wanted to, they could do that. Yeah.
I was just looking for ways to maybe lighten the workload. I mean, she's
Yeah.
already lobbying for multiple positions and
Yeah.
making budget adjustments in addition to having to pick up extra
Whether he wants to talk to you
responsibilities.
or not is another question. I'm just kidding. But,
I mean,
but
is
you,
that-
you could definitely reach out. And,
Is that something, Joe, do you want to do that, or is that something you would like me to do in my role? I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, either or, but I just, like I said, I'm just looking for a way to
Yeah,
help
yeah.
out, like Jess said, if we can help in some way.
Happy to help research the mechanisms that the county has for employing in emergency situations. So anybody that would
Well,
like-
let's decide who's going to do it.
I vote that Jess does it.
Perfect. Jess, you brought up the idea.
It was her idea.
Yay
I
me.
mean, it's only.
Perfect.
Happy to
only
do it.
fair.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions or discussion points around the review of library hours? And again, I thank you for this. I think this is a really helpful way of communicating information and also tool to advocate for the waiver of that gap on those two positions and for filling them. So, thank you. All right, and with that, that brings us to our second period of public comment. Sadly, we
would-
lost all our
I
public.
would like to make a comment because I did not have a chance at all to talk about the evaluation process, and I don't want to go into any great detail since we're going to have another one, but I will say that I took the wording from that exactly from previous years' agendas. So I'm, assuming that you were then able to vote on, step increases and whatever, because that was the exact wording that was on previous. So had I known that the wording needed to be different, not that it matters because we're going into a special meeting, but I would have changed that. Like I said, I looked back on previous agendas, and that was the wording that was used.
We're looking into that, CL. I'm sorry we have to postpone it another couple weeks.
Yeah. Nope, that's fine.
All right, with that, I will call us adjourned at 4:34 PM. Thank you all.